Hello, and we're here with Film Bouillabaisse getting ready for Halloween. It's our favorite time of year. I'm here with Logan Albright.
Hey everybody!
And I spent Halloween last year with Logan Albright. He was dressed as David S. Pumpkins as we took an international flight over to Ireland. This is a true story.
This is a true story. It really happened. It seems like so long ago when we were able to travel and move around freely without having to be afraid of dying.
And we drank all of the Guinness. There was none left.
So it's only early, it's only September, but Halloween is my favorite holiday, and the weather here where I am in Washington, D.C. has been distinctly fall-ish, and I really am getting in the Halloween mood. And since it now appears that like most Halloween festivities are going to be canceled, I wanted to do something special, so I decided to buy tons and tons of DVDs for Halloween and Blu-rays of horror movies that I can watch and scare myself with so I can mark the occasion in traditional fashion, maybe have a few friends over if the government will allow me to do that. And so I wanted to go through some of the movies I got and talk about them and why I chose them, and we can decide if they're good Halloween movies or not.
I'm gonna come over.
You're welcome to.
Okay. What you got first? I hope it's a Hammer film.
Oh, I do have a Hammer film, but I wasn't going to do it first, but I'll do it first. This is a Blu-ray that I ordered from The Devil Rides Out, also known as Bride of the Devil. It is a Hammer film starring Christopher Lee, my favorite guy in the world. I had not actually seen this before I ordered it, but I wanted a Hammer film, and I did a little research, and this is regarded as one of their better ones. And I do love Christopher Lee. And I like movies about Satanism and like evil cults and stuff like that, occultism. I like them better than movies about vampires and zombies and mummies and stuff. So I chose this one, and I did watch it the other day, and it's awesome. I recommend it. The one weakness of the film is some of the special effects are not great, but the performances are good. There's actually a lot more. We talked about this on another episode. They did a lot more research into like occult practices than most horror movies do, so there's a lot more authentic things in there, although a lot of it is still wrong. So yeah, great classic like late 70s film. I don't know if it actually is late 70s. I may have that wrong, but it feels like kind of a 70s sort of film. What do you think? The Devil Rides Out, any good?
Yes, it fits right into that satanic panic kind of era of cinema.
It also has some good special features on here. There's a commentary track with Christopher Lee talking about the movie, which is pretty great because I miss him dearly.
Is Peter Cushing in that?
Peter Cushing is not in this one, unfortunately. It's great when you get Lee and Cushing together, but it's weird because the other main lead has all of his dialogue dubbed over by another actor, and I don't know why. I guess he had the wrong accent or something. Very strange. It's like a very Hammer thing to do.
Go Hammer, go Hammer, go Hammer.
Okay, so my next film is Clive Barker's Hellraiser. And I just actually read the book that this is based on, The Hellbound Heart, which is a great book. And Hellraiser is not a perfect horror movie. There's some bad acting in it. There's some bad effects in it that are kind of dated. But I love the concept of it. I just love the idea behind Hellraiser, which is this kind of dimension of beings who are so obsessed with sensation and pleasure that they have blurred the line between pleasure and pain completely, where those two things are indistinguishable from one another. It's just raw sensation. And I think that's an awesome idea. And the Cenobites, as they're called, are not the villains of the film. They're not the bad guys. They're just doing what they do. And I think that's really cool. So I really like the aesthetics, and then the design of these creatures is so iconic and so good. And the movie was actually directed by Clive Barker and written by Clive Barker, so it really is his vision. And I think it's a great film.
Clive Barker is such a master. That movie scared me a lot when I was a little kid. All of them, but particularly like maybe the first three. However, I never really understood the name Cenobite. I mean, I remember even being a small child and thinking Cenobite sounded like the mini cinnamon rolls at the mall right next to the Orange Julius. So I felt like that could have been a better name.
It definitely does sound like that. It's not the best name ever. But yeah, I've actually only seen the first two Hellraiser movies because I've heard that after that they get really bad. But the first one's a classic, and I recommend it. Okay, next up on the list is The Ring, which I saw as a young man, and I found it incredibly scary. It's based on a Japanese movie, of course. The main reason I got it is because it actually is legitimately frightening, which I find not the case with a lot of horror movies. And I like Naomi Watts a lot. She's one of my favorite kind of modern actresses. And so I thought I'd give The Ring another watch. I haven't seen it in a long time.
So that came out again when we were in college, 2004, based upon the Japanese film Ringu. And there's been sequels, there's been prequels, there's been a TV show, but there's nothing like going back to kind of the source material, at least of the American first version and the Japanese first version.
I also say a reason why I picked a lot of these films is it turns out a lot of horror movies are super cheap on DVD. Like, I got a lot of these for under $5 on Amazon. So, like, that was partially my calculation of why to pick these. The ones that were $20 for a Blu-ray, I was like, nah, I'll get the one that's $4. So, you can get a lot of quality films for under $5. It's pretty good.
I still have my VHS collection.
Man, I don't even have a VHS player. I should probably get one. I bet you can get one cheap these days.
Yeah, yes. And once you have one, hold on to it, because you never know when you're going to need it.
Okay, next up is the Rob Zombie film, The Lords of Salem.
Talk about the drone music.
Okay, so I have kind of mixed feelings about Rob Zombie's films. I think he's an interesting director. A lot of his movies are a little bit too grindhouse for me. They're just a little bit too, one note, kind of gory and bloody. And but I think he's a very intelligent man, and he has good taste in cinema. And this is my favorite of his films that I've seen. And I think it's got a lot more going on. It's got Pat Quinn from the Rocky Horror Picture Show in it, which was a great surprise to see her in it. And the basic plot about this is that there's a haunted musical piece, which is sort of this creepy drone that they play on the radio, and it summons evil people. So that's cool for me because I like weird, scary music, and I enjoyed that. So I thought this was kind of the most artistic and the most involved of his movies that's not just people slaughtering each other in the most grotesque possible ways, although it has a lot of that in it. So that's why I picked that one. And
it kind of harkens back a little bit to like the Rosemary's Baby kind of scene. Would you like to do maybe an episode where we talk about the entire Rob Zombie oeuvre of horror films?
Yeah, I think I've seen all of them except for the Halloween remakes. So, yeah, we could totally do that.
I don't know that that's even important for you to have seen. And if you, dear listener, are interested in that, pop us a comment down below.
Definitely. Okay, next we're back to my favorite guy in the world, Christopher Lee, with the 1973 classic, The Wicker Man.
Is Peter Cushing in it?
No, Peter Cushing's not in it, but Christopher Lee is in it, and I want to make clear that this is not the Nicolas Cage version of The Wicker Man, which is a horrible abomination. This is the classic of pagan horror, which I love me some pagan horror. It takes place on an island called Summer Isle, where Christopher Lee is sort of presiding over it, and they've brought back the old religion, worshiping the old gods, dancing around the maypole, and doing a bunch of stuff that is utterly horrifying to the staid, conservative British police officer who shows up there. I think it's fun. I think the performances are great. It's got a great creepiness to it. If you saw Midsommar last year, this is I think that movie owes a lot to this movie in terms of the aesthetic of it and the ideas behind it. So I love this film.
The bees!
No bees. There's no bees in this film. The remake has bees. The original has no bees.
What's next?
Okay, next is a 2-for-1. A little bit lighter side of Halloween. I got Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Oh, nice. The Cornetto trilogy minus the third one.
I haven't seen the third one. I really should. But I love both of these films. Shaun... I'm forgetting his name. What's his name? Simon Pegg. I wanted to say Shaun of the Dead. Simon Pegg is awesome. He's really funny. Both these movies are really funny and poke fun at the genre. They do play a lot around with cliches a lot. I liked Hot Fuzz better than Shaun of the Dead because, as I said, I like kind of like evil, spooky cults better than I like zombies. But both films are classics. They're great. They're really funny, and they have a lot of scary parts too. So it says on the back, double the laughter. So that'll be a fun one if I get tired of being scared and want to laugh.
Is Peter Cushing in it?
I don't have any movies with Peter Cushing in them. You're going to be so disappointed.
I am. I can't believe you bought all those movies and not one Peter Cushing film.
I watched, earlier this week, I watched The Vampire Lovers on Shudder. That had Peter Cushing in it. Pretty good. Another Hammer film. Pretty good Hammer film.
Go Hammer. Go Hammer.
Next up, I have this. This is a bit of a wild card. People probably haven't heard of this one. But it's called Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It's produced by Guillermo del Toro, but not directed by him. But it has a little bit of his style, I think, feel. I like it because it's sort of based on the stories of Arthur Machen, who was a Welsh horror writer, kind of in the same circle as Lovecraft, a little bit of earlier than Lovecraft, kind of an influence on him. It's got a lot about the kind of the creepy aspect of like Welsh fairy lore in it. I think it's got a lot of disturbing moments. It's a pretty good movie. It's got Katie Holmes in it and Guy Pearce. I just liked it. I thought it was a fun, good modern horror film. And I love Arthur Machen. He was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is the famous occult order, and he has a lot of that kind of stuff in his writing. So I thought that was cool.
I enjoyed it. I saw that in the theater, and I thought that Katie Holmes was great in it. And it does have that Del Toro style, even though it's kind of one of his proteges from what I recall.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like him, although it's not full Del Toro. Speaking of full Del Toro, my next is a Blu-ray of Crimson Peak, which is a Guillermo del Toro film. I like it a lot. He describes it as a gothic romance rather than a horror film. It definitely has, I mean, I watched a lot of the special features on this where he talks about his influences, and he's extremely educated on gothic literature and film. He talks a lot about like Anne Radcliffe and Daphne du Maurier. Rebecca is a big influence. It's a period piece. So he really knows his stuff. He talks about The Monk and all these early gothic romance novels that are just, you know, they have the perfect mixture of kind of dark, passionate romance. Wuthering Heights is an influence, and then like horrific things. It's got beautiful visual style. The main reason I picked it up is I love the way it looks. I think the visuals are great. I think the performances are great. The woman who plays the main antagonist in the movie, whose name I'm forgetting, is fantastic in it. I really liked her. And it's just a beautiful film. I like all the period pieces, period elements to it. Use of color is really interesting because it divides between America and Britain. And the America scenes are all very warm and gold. And the Britain scenes are all very cold. And that's when they start to use red as a kind of a blood color, just an accent. They don't use a lot of red, but the red they use is an accent. And everything else is cold in Britain. I think it's a masterfully directed film and a lot of fun.
And the house design is beautiful.
Everything is beautiful. The house is great. The costumes are great. He talks a lot about how he integrated the costume design and the house design together so they kind of mirror each other. I think listening to Del Toro, I think is interesting because you get the sense that there's two different kinds of directors. There's like technicians and there's artists. And, you know, I've been watching a lot of the Peter Jackson films lately and listening to his audio commentaries. And he spends all of his time talking about how he did things. It's like, this is what we did with the cameras. This is how we did this effect. In Guillermo del Toro's audio commentary, he doesn't talk about how he did anything. He talks about why he did everything. Why he designed things to look the way they are. Why this performance is the way it is. Why the costume is the way it is. It's all very drenched in symbolism and art. And I think that's cool. So I like that a lot.
So this film, Crimson Peak, it was in development hell for ages. We mentioned one in a previous episode about how he was going to direct in the Mountains of Madness. But he ended up going this route instead, and then this one finally ended up being produced and then released to a wide theatrical release. So I was happy for that, although still would like to see him take on Lovecraft.
Yeah, I actually saw it twice in the theaters because I liked it so much. And I should mention he wrote it as well. He's also the author of the story in addition to directing it. So it's a very, very Del Toro thing to watch. Last one. This is a little bit of a more serious film than the other ones I got. A lot more serious than the other ones I got. The other ones are all, you know, more or less fun to watch, I would say. This one is a serious, dark, depressing horror movie. It's The Witch, or The Witch, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Which is a really interesting and different take on witch lore and horror movies. It is by the same director who did The Lighthouse. It's got a very similar feel. It's very stark. It's very remote. It's very quiet. It's slow. And it's kind of horrifying in a lot of different levels. So this is not a film I want to watch a lot. It's not a film that I want to watch like every week or something because it's too emotionally upsetting to kind of do that. But when you're in the mood for it, when you're in the mood for something that's really like dark and cold and set out in the wilderness and just has a handful of characters in a miserable situation, suffering through horrific things, it's a good pick because it's really artistic.
And it's artistic, but it is a fairly linear historical horror, unlike The Lighthouse. So if the Lighthouse was too hallucinogenic for you, then you may still please give The Witch a try. It's one of the top 5 best horror films I've seen in the past 5 years, easily.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm interested to. I haven't watched it yet, but I watched it before, but I haven't watched it since I got the Blu-ray. And I'm interested to like hear their commentary and hear some of their thoughts about why they directed it this way. It should be a lot of fun to learn about that. But it's very kind of Salem feeling. It's like 17th century New England, and it's just it talks about the difficulty of life and in that time period and how just precarious survival is at that point in time. So I think that's pretty cool.
I love a film that starts with a good banishing.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, all these movies are kind of have a supernatural horror theme for the most part. I prefer my horror to be supernatural rather than just serial killer or slasher. So they all have some kind of connection to witches or seances or demons or satanic cults or things like that, because that's what I'm into.
All right, well, we will wrap this up. Let us know what you would like us to tackle next. I know we've both watched Host on Shudder, so maybe that one. If you have any burning questions about things that you've watched, maybe Hansel and Gretel, or Gretel and Hansel, I think it is, pop them down below. We'll leave you here. I'm Alison Parker.
I'm Logan Albright. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween! I'm going to come to your party. Is Peter Cushing going to be there?
He'll definitely be there. He'll be the CGI Tarkin from the Star Wars movies.
Oh, I thought he would be David S. Pumpkins.
No, he'll be CGI Tarkin. We can't, because he's dead. We have to bring him back through the magic of CGI.
Okay, that's fair.